Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Authority Marketing Live. I'm Melanie Hirschhorn, a book marketing strategist who bridges the gap between publishing and publicity. And I am so excited because I'm back in my office. COVID has finally left my family, and now we're living life, living large. Not really, but we're just back in our regular spaces, and I'm not stuck in the basement next to a window well anymore. Yay! So today I have an incredible guest whom I've known for a very long time, basically since I started doing this whole thing, and she's fantastic. And her company is called Publishing with a Purpose. Publish your purpose. So you can kind of figure out what she does based on the name of her company, which is brilliant marketing, if you ask me. Her name is Jenn Grace, and I'm going to bring her on right now. So here she is. Hi, Jenn.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. So publish your purpose. I said publishing. I apologize.
It's okay. It's a tongue twister.
Yes. Well, it's great alliteration is what it is.
That was the kind of the goal. So I appreciate you acknowledging the marketing component of that because it was very intentional.
I bet it is. It's all about that SEO, right?
Sure is.
Okay. So let's talk about what Publish Your Purpose does. So tell me about your business.
Yeah. So we're a hybrid publisher, and I like to explain that to people as kind of the happy middle ground between self-publishing and traditional publishing. I think
Right.
oftentimes people have just kind of misconceptions of what the publishing space is. It's either you have to go to New York and get it published or you have to do it yourself. And really, there's a lot of us in that middle space that are really here to support authors. And everyone kind of has a different unique angle. And so ours is more about the business strategy and the marketing strategy of what are you actually doing with your book? Because that if we can figure out how we're going to get it in front of your audience, it's going to help us have a bigger impact on, on the people that the author is trying to serve.
Absolutely. So what truly is the difference between a hybrid publisher and a self-publishing route?
So self-publishing oftentimes is just straight up DIY, do it yourself, pray and hope for the best. And I am a big fan of self-publishing. I really am. But there's so many best practices that the traditional side of the industry has implemented. And so there's all of these little areas that someone who doesn't have the right guidance, the right direction, they don't really know what to do, they kind of fall into these traps. So whether it's, trying to design a cover themselves, never a good idea, never a good idea. Or trying to typeset your own book, like trying to do the typesetting, and that's the interior formatting of a book in a Word document. It's not going to be the level of quality that your book needs to be. So hybrid publishers are that kind of the steward. They're the folks that have to meet industry standards, really do everything they can to be compared traditional versus hybrid, making sure that the quality looks exactly the same. So, working with a hybrid, whether it's myself or somebody else, is always a good choice because then you don't have to worry about project managing it yourself. You don't have to worry about spending a lot of extra money because you hired the wrong people or did something out of order. And then beyond that, it's really thinking about kind of the purpose and the impact of, what are you doing with this book, and how are we going to make sure that the book is actually aligned from both a writing and a design standpoint to achieve those goals.
Absolutely. So it's having an expert usher you through the process without having to wait on a traditional publisher to potentially give you a spot on their
Yeah.
roster.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting to think of kind of the hierarchy that traditional publishing has. Like they really are gatekeepers of thought leadership. And it's kind of nice that the hybrid space has been growing and emerging for, I'd say, the last 5 or 10 years. Is really starting to boom because I think people are kind of tired of traditional publishing, indeed being those gatekeepers of people's thoughts. So it's a great space to be.
It's true. It's like YouTube broke the barrier on who gets to be famous on television and in movies.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Same
Look at
thing.
Justin Bieber.
Hmm.
Actually found him on YouTube. There we
Yeah.
go.
Crazy.
Yeah, so I love that. So thank you so much for sort of giving a really in-depth explanation.
Yeah.
So who are the best kinds of authors for you? Who are the people that sort of gravitate to having you become their publisher?
So it's interesting because it's very much around folks that have purpose kind of leading their way, which is why we are publish your purpose. So our focus is on really creating kind of a win-win-win scenario for everybody involved. So for us as an organization, for the author themselves, and then also who the author and we as the publisher are serving collectively. So I need to be able to have a conversation with somebody and understand, what's your motivation? What's the drive? What's the bigger impact? What's the goal? Like, where are we trying to go with this? And so that makes it kind of easy to figure out who's going to be the best fit for us, because if they have a big plan, even if they have no idea how to execute the plan, or they have an idea, but they have no idea how to create a plan, that's okay. It's just somebody who wants to do something with their work. Because there's a lot of people, and it's no, there's no judgment to this at all, but there's a lot of people who are like, you know what, I just want to publish this book. I'm just going to give it to friends and family. I'm going to give it to my grandkids. That's great. Like, I think that's awesome, because there's definitely a need for that. But when it comes to the services in our areas of expertise, we are much better suited for somebody who has really big plans for what they're doing. And then our price point makes much more sense when they're going after something much bigger,
Absolutely. And I feel that you and I are very aligned in that regard, because yes, having a legacy book is a wonderful thing.
Great.
My husband's aunt likes to write legacy books for herself, and
That's
then she
awesome.
prints them and gets them spiral bound and
Oh,
gives them out to everybody, and that's lovely.
that's awesome.
But that's not what we're doing
No, because we definitely serve similar people, right? They're thought leaders, they're speakers, they're consultants, they're moving and shaking and doing good for the world. And so when you want to be doing good for the world, you have to have a really concrete strategy in place, because otherwise you can go off the rails really quickly and not even know it.
That's so true. And, you probably have experienced this too, that you might have a client who jumps from publishing right to PR, and
Mhm.
they don't have that online platform set up, and then they don't understand why it's not working.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely, which is why strategy is important. And like kind of knowing that at the beginning, actually part of our our onboarding process, if you will, is we have a number of incredibly lengthy questionnaires where we ask a lot of information. And I warn everybody, even in like my process of like just kind of getting to know the author, even before we're going to work together, I warn them of like, if we work together, I'm going to ask a lot from you, because in order for you to have success, we need information. And so it's like a 29-page questionnaire of information, and it's about their business. It's what their products look like. It's how they're selling their stuff already. It's what their marketing looks like. It's what their thoughts are for their book. Maybe they don't really know yet. It's about their brand, whether it's personal or business. So it's all of those considerations that are really what kind of elevate an entire book project, is when you have all that information. Otherwise, you're operating with absolutely no perspective or guidance.
and I love that you do that. And that is true, because a lot of times, an author gets, or a business owner, a person with a brand gets so excited to write the book. They say, I'm going to be a thought leader in my space. I'm going to write a book. And then
Mhm.
they write a book, and then it's like, okay, well, that doesn't automatically make you a thought leader.
It
Other
doesn't.
people have to really bestow that title upon you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it has to be intentional. And that's why I say, and I probably use the word strategy at least 100 times a day, at least in conversations, because it's like the title and subtitle, there's strategy behind that. The book's
Right.
description, there's strategy, the keywords, the categories that your book is in, the way that it's written, the calls to action to your reader, all of that has to really be strategically thought through to have that maximum impact and success. Because otherwise, you could still be writing, the writing of itself, the editing could be gorgeous and beautiful and lyrical and poetic and amazing. But if the business and marketing strategy isn't baked into that entirety of the manuscript itself, there's so many opportunities that are never going to kind of surface.
Preach.
I know we are on the
Yeah.
same page. That's
Great.
why we enjoy each other.
Absolutely. So, do you have like a favorite author story? Something that, you kind of went from, wow, this is just going to be, typical, but it ended up being
Mm.
amazing.
It's hard. It's hard to share stories like that without identifying the authors themselves, and I always do everything I can to protect the
There,
anonymity of
yeah.
them. I have so many horror stories. Like,
Okay, tell a horror story that has nothing to do with a client of yours. Go.
what range would we like to talk about? Are we talk like,
Oh,
I have a really good one around what not to do in version control with your draft.
love it.
That
Go.
And I joke with this author, and of course I will still keep her anonymous, but I joke that like I would love to have like a hall of fame of authors of like the bad things that they've done, whether it's like not following our advice around a cover, which we're super collaborative. So if they really have a vision in mind, we will say, I don't really think that's going to do best for marketing, or it's not going to really serve you well in the market, but at the end of the day, you're the one that's driving this. So if that's what you want, that's fine. But I have joked with many of them saying, like, I'm going to do a hall of fame, and it's going to be just case studies of what not to do. And your face and your book are going to be right there for everybody to see. And they all think it's actually pretty great. So one day, maybe I will do that. But this one author in particular, we were at the finish line of her editing process. And for a reason that no one can understand even to this day, she decided that she was going to delete all of her sources. But not like, I mean, all of her sources, like just deleted them. And so we were like at the finish line, and she deleted all of her sources, and it added 6 extra months to the process because she had to go back in and find all of the sources because she couldn't locate a previous the most recently edited version that included the sources. She only had like some version from like way back that didn't include all of the editing. It was like a version control nightmare that I have never seen or encountered before, and hopefully never again. But
How does one even do that? She just went in and hit
just
Control Alt Delete.
I don't even think she knows. And it was and again, like I've definitely like poked fun at her to her, so I'm not like speaking out of turn. But it was just funny because like it stunk because we were so close, and then we had to go back to the drawing board, and then we couldn't find where the sources were from originally, and so then she came back with like brainyquote.com, and we're like, that can't be used as a proper source point. And so it's one of those things that, and this is somebody who had guidance and direction from us as a team, and that still happened. So it's kind of thinking about, if you're going to publish a book, how are you going to approach that? And thinking about that happening when you are working with a team of experts, something that tragic happening. If you're on your own, you wouldn't even know, right? Like, so you could be sourcing your book with Brainy Quote, and then all of a sudden you're getting, some kind of legal letter, or your book is getting suppressed because it's using material that's not coming from the right location. So that's kind of the tricky part of self-publishing. Like, if you don't have that institutional knowledge about how to do it, it can really land you in some hot water every now and then.
Absolutely. Okay, so that is a definite cautionary tale. So thank you for
Very
sharing.
random.
Okay, and you have a free guide for everybody watching.
I
And
do.
so why don't you tell us a bit about this?
So this is the 9 questions you should ask your prospective publisher, and it's a PDF guide. We're in the middle of updating it currently. There's certainly more than 9 questions, but these are like the concrete 9 questions to ask, because as you and I were recently on a kind of industry call together with a bunch of awesome people, which I put us in that category too, like just a bunch of really cool people.
We're awesome.
We're doing everything we can to be counterweights to an industry that is incredibly predatory. And so there are so many vanity presses out there. And I don't want people to be confused between a hybrid publisher and a vanity press, because they're very, very different.
Yes.
But, a vanity press is someone who kind of is like, is wooing you in to be like, hey, come publish your book with us. It's only going to cost you $500. And we're going to get it out in 2 weeks. And you're like, oh my God, I've been working on this for so long. I just want to be able to like, that's so great. They can do it so fast. It's really inexpensive. And then once you sign on that dotted line, or you see the quality of product that comes out, which is usually what the red flag is of, they didn't edit it at all. And it's like, yeah, you paid $500. Editing costs thousands of dollars. Of course they weren't going to edit it. And so, but you don't know that as a first time author. And so this guide I give to everybody that I talk to, and I say, even if you think you want to work with us, please talk to other people, do your research, do your homework, ask questions, because I want authors to be empowered to know where they're going to be susceptible to being taken advantage of. And so this guide is just really the big questions, like contractually in a lot of cases, to ask to just protect yourself, because this industry is unfortunately incredibly awful in a lot of ways.
Okay, well, since I like to be positive, you and I get to put out the positivity and show the great things about this industry. I mean,
Me too.
I'll tell you, yesterday I had a call with a gentleman, and he and I are both presenting speeches in a summit coming up. And he's telling me all the things that he's doing. And I said, "That's so great. You're doing all the things." And he said, "So what can you do for me?" I said, "No, you're doing all the things.
Yeah.
I don't need to help you." He's like,
Yeah.
"No, but," I said, "No, I really don't need to help you. You really have it all taken care of. I think this is your next step." And he said, "Oh, well,
Mhm.
okay." It's rare, I guess, for someone to say, "You don't need my help." It's
Absolutely.
like, "Hey, I'm gonna charge you X amount and
Mhm.
do things you don't need done."
And that's the commonality. Like, I'm trying to think what the wording was. Oh, it's going to drive me crazy. I talked to somebody just recently
Yeah.
who was like, "Oh, that they're gonna do this thing," and I was like, "They're gonna do what?" It was something that was like maybe related to copyright, but it was something that was not even really an actual thing. But the way that they had worded their packages is
Mhm.
that they were throwing out all of these things that look like benefits to the author, but really don't even actually exist. It's all just like marketing spin. And
Oh,
I was like, "Oh my God, this is so," and like, and I do everything I can. I will never badmouth a specific company. There's a lot of them out there that are not great. I will never say any of them publicly. There's a lot of ways which my guide shows of how to find out if they're predatory or not without me having to name names. But there's a lot of things like that where it's like, oh, but the big one is like minimum orders. That's usually the big red flag, is that because a lot of these publishers, their business model is actually selling books to the author, not helping the author sell books to their people.
oh, that's so
That's the big one that is like really is like the like if it's $500 to publish, guarantee you're going to have a $20,000 invoice for books at some point in the coming months, and they have no idea. And it's very clear in the fine print, but nobody reads the fine print.
mm,
Yep,
lesson in reading the fine print.
I tell
Okay.
everybody.
All
Mhm.
right. So you guys, publishyourpurpose.com/publisher hyphen questions. That's your ticket to knowing what you need to do before you publish your book.
Absolutely. And it's applicable to all genres. Like we focus on nonfiction specifically,
Yeah.
leadership, business, diversity, equity, inclusion. Those are kind of our wheelhouse, but it doesn't matter. Like it all applies regardless of what type of book you're publishing. So I encourage anyone, it's not designed as like a lead generator, if you will, of like, oh hey, you got my PDF. Now I have to like get my hooks into you and you work with me. It's really very much like just please take it and educate yourself and empower yourself to not land in some of these traps. That's all.
That is beautiful. Jen, thank you so much. Okay, everybody. So it's Jenn T. Grace. It is Publish Your Purpose. And I believe that's publishyourpurpose.com.
It is, yes.
And you can get your free guide right here, publishyourpurpose.com/publisher dash questions. Jen, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I always like being in your energy.
Oh, well, thank you so much. All right, everybody, have a wonderful rest of your day and go get this guide. All right, take care. Bye.